Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning to honor the arts. Such an important event for the United States Conference of Mayors, and I thank all of you for getting up at this early hour to start our day, but I'm very aware of all of your time and respectful of it, and so we're going to move through the program at this time. But before we start, I'm proud to announce the kickoff of the 33rd Annual City Livability Awards. There's an application and guideline booklet on each of your seats. If you guys would take a look at it. This prestigious awards program is sponsored by Waste Management and has been for the past 22 years and celebrates the creativity of mayors and their city governments improving the quality of life for city residents. This program, I think, is really a great way to promote local best practices and challenges all of us to pursue recognition for innovation in the arts in our city. So I encourage you to apply. The deadline is Friday, March 2nd, so good luck to all of you that partake of that. Today is a great day. Love it. It's a day when we join with our partners, Americans for the Arts, to honor public leadership in the arts. As chair of the Tourism, Arts, Parks, and Entertainment Sports Committee, it's my honor to be asked by our president, Mayor Villaraigosa, to moderate the breakfast. I thank him for that. Now, I know the arts inspire each and every one of us. We have a number of people here that we're honoring today for their exemplary service who have shown just great leadership in the arts. But before we begin, I want to say a few words about a meeting that I am hosting in the city of New Orleans that is called the World Cultural Economic Forum. There's a brochure at your desk. This is it. I hope that all of you come. It's during the week of Jazz Fest in New Orleans to give you just a little incentive to make your way there. But this idea is a fairly simple idea that I know that many mayors around the country already understand, and it's fairly simple. It's culture means business. A lot of times in our cities when we're trying to grow jobs, we separate economic development really without thinking about it into two categories: economic growth and economic development. All of us are good at running around the world and the country trying to get a major automotive plant to come to our cities, and if you're lucky enough to get one of those, God bless you. But there's something else. It's called economic growth, and the idea is fairly simple, is that in your towns, if you have raw material, oil and gas, or if you have raw talent, Harry Connick, Wynton Marsalis, George DeRoe, right, Brian Batt, or great visual artists or performing artists, or you have great universities where people are producing great intellectual content that then gets turned into a product, raw material, raw talent, intellectual capital. The idea of economic growth is to take that raw talent and to add value to it there and to manufacture the product there and then sell it to the rest of the world and have them come to you so that they invest in your city. And if you think about this from the perspective of the arts, I think many people really don't realize the economic engine. Many of you have been in small rooms where you're hustling voters, and they say, well, listen, if you have to choose between funding the museum, Mr. Mayor, or funding the police department, which are you going to do? And you see it as a zero-sum game. And the answer is both. And the reason why the answer is both is because if you count, thank you, if you count the back of the house side, and Mayor Riley knows this better than anybody, and you add it up, and you go to the appropriations table from a position of strength and say, well, why don't we count it based on return on investment? Then all of a sudden they begin to see the arts and culture as an economic engine. In the state of Louisiana, that little bitty state at the bottom of the United States of America, actually we think it's right in the center of the entire South Central and North America, where we see ourselves from, we have 144,000 jobs in the state of Louisiana that are tied to art, music, culture, historic preservation, Mayor Riley, architecture, and in this instance now the film and the digital media industry. Last year in Louisiana, we did 37 major motion pictures. We did a $500 million book of business because the legislature began to treat culture like a business. And when they talked about economic incentives like tax breaks, which you don't usually hear with the arts, we were able to build cultural products district and sent the movie industry to come do work there. And so the back of the house side of it is not the fact that we have wonderful actors and actresses that come down that people can oogle and ogle over when they're walking down the street, which is nice. But we talk about the jobs that are produced by the electricians, the people that build the sets. The rug distributor who actually leases his rugs to the set designer before they do it, to the restaurants who feed them, to the caterers who do it, to the architects, to the folks that drive the trucks. So folks that used to drive trucks that had oil and gas in it that went to the rigs, now they're driving the trucks with TV cameras in them. And if you count it from that perspective and you add it up in your cities, then all of a sudden it means big business. And you're not using it as a loss leader anymore to encourage a Fortune 500 company to come in just so they can go to the opera. You're actually thinking about the employee that is the stage manager that is running the show, or the person that actually built the frame that the beautiful artist put his picture in. So that's the idea. And what we have decided to do is make Louisiana the international discussion point for culture and economics. And for many years, when I was a lieutenant governor, we hosted something called the World Cultural Economic Forum. The point of entry was through lieutenant governors, but now that I've had the blessing of being the mayor of the city of New Orleans, we're going to do it with the world's mayors. And we're going to invite the mayors from all over the world to come to New Orleans, and I'd like to invite all of you to do that and think about what countries you're doing business with and use it as an opportunity to invite the mayors from those countries to your home and to talk about how you and their cities can actually begin to build the jobs in your community. So I commend that to you. It's May 2nd to May 4th. It's going to be Jazz Fest. And just so that you give you an idea of what you're looking at, in New Orleans, just in this 6-month period of time, in the last 14 days, we've hosted 9 major sports, entertainment, cultural events, the economic impact of which was $500 million. On May 2nd through 4th, we're going to do the Jazz Fest. It's going to have 500,000 people, food, fun, music, right? All of y'all investing in the city of New Orleans, and we're making the tax revenue. That's a $500 million program. And then after that, we're going to do the Essence Festival, which is the largest gathering of African-American business and cultural leaders over the July 4th weekend. That's a $500 million program, too. All of them started on the corner with a couple of people 15 to 20 years ago. That's how they all started, and that's how they all start. And if you germinate them right, if you get your money right, if you get your partners right, if you have your product right, if it's authentic, and it's something that reflects the beauty of the culture in your city, you can turn this into not only a great place for you to visit, but a great place for you to do business. So I commend it to you. I thank you for it, and I hope that you accept my invitation to join us. So I thank you for that. But to help us kick things off, I'm going to call upon our wonderful CAO and our executive director, Mr. Tom Cochran, who has been an unbelievable champion for the arts. Tom, please join us.
Isn't Mitch Landrieu great? I mean, he is, for those of us who have been involved in American with the Arts, and we come here every year and have breakfasts, we're so pleased that we have Mitch as our chair. Mayor Couts and I were down in New Orleans last year, and we had a small meeting, and it was fun. We went to the Jazz Fest, and New Orleans is a great city. But we went to the fairgrounds and had a meeting at a table, and Mitch does his number about the cultural economy. I'm so glad he talked about it. And when we get to New Orleans in May, all of you must be there, because there is something in your hometown that you can grow, as Mitch is saying. This is one of the great partnerships that we have, the American for the Arts. And we're so pleased that we continue to strengthen this relationship. 4 years ago, we did some bipartisan political stuff. We had a forum in New Hampshire, and we had forums at the Republican convention and also at the Democrat convention. And the driving force that works for me is Nina Oslu-Tuncelli, who is our partner and who's here today. And I'm not going to say anything else except I want to thank her, Bob Lynch, and the partnership that we have, and let us continue under Mayor Landrieu's leadership to go forward. So Nina, can you come up, please?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's such a pleasure to be here. We wholeheartedly agree that the U.S. Conference of Mayors is the best partner a person could have, an organization could have. From the bottom of my heart, I thank Tom Cochran for his incredible leadership over these years and the entire body of the United States Conference of Mayors for all of the leadership that not only you bring to Washington at a national level, but for the leadership that you conduct back home in helping the arts not only thrive, but be part of the economic solution in your communities across the country and making this entire country grow. Mayor Landrieu, I will be in New Orleans, and I will encourage as many mayors and arts groups, if you want them to come to New Orleans for this very, very important economic forum. Tom Cochran mentioned the political conventions that we put on 4 years ago now. I'm here to say that we're going to be doing the same thing, even bigger. Not only are we going to be doing panel discussions with partnering with the Conference of Mayors, but this year we're going to be adding a concert. We're partnering with the Grammys and the Conference of Mayors and others. And as many of you who are delegates who will be coming to both conventions, we will be doing it in both conventions, and we really will be working with the Conference of Mayors to help make sure that all of you can come to all of these events. We're really trying to elevate the issue of arts policy among all elected officials and among the two political parties. This morning is about public leadership in the arts, and we have such a great group of awardees that we'll be presenting to in a few short minutes. Just a couple notes on that. Last year, because of such a huge demand and such great nominations, we started 2 categories for mayors. One is for a large city, over 100,000 in population, and one is for a smaller city. So there'll be 2 awards, and we will continue that tradition. The outpouring of nominations was so incredible. I was just glad that I was not on the selection committee to have to make these hard choices. But we think we have some incredible honorees this morning. Tom had mentioned Bob Lynch. Normally he would be up here, but the news is that he was invited by President Obama. I know you'll be seeing him later today, but he's in Orlando this morning because they will be doing a very large announcement this morning about a major tourism initiative. So I'm sure it's going to have a very much impact on what you're going to want to be talking about in New Orleans in May. But it's going to. They'll also be announcing the new members of the Travel and Tourism Advisory Board that Bob has been nominated for, and he will be there to help forward the issues on arts and cultural tourism issues. Because, as we know, cultural tours outstay and outspend the average tourist. They outspend them 2 to 1. And in terms of the number of nights that they stay in your cities, it's 5.2 nights for the average cultural tourist, but for the average tourist that doesn't come in specifically for cultural venues and destinations and events, it's only 3.4 nights. So it makes real economic sense to really be putting the arts in a political and policy strategy of getting more tourists to come into this country from an international point of view. In terms of economic impact, I also want to mention one other thing. You've known our organization to be the organization that tracks and analyzes the statistics on the economic impact of the nonprofit arts industry. The last study we released was in 2004, but this year we will be releasing a brand new one. It will be done in early June, so I hope to be joining you in Orlando to share the results of that major economic impact study. Based on the information that we know from 2004, our industry is $166.2 billion, and we support 5.7 million full-time jobs. So stay tuned to see what the new study will be. Of course, this will be tracking numbers during a recession, so I am also waiting with bated breath of what will happen there. Of course, our partner with this is always the U.S. Conference of Mayors. We also have 182 cities participating in the study. Many of the cities that are here are participants in that through your local arts agency. Speaking of local arts agency, we have some of our member arts agencies and private sector councils here with us, and I also welcome you to this meeting this morning. And we also have 9 states participating in the study, and one of them, Governor Quinn, is the state of Illinois. So I would now like to ask Mayor Landrieu to begin the award ceremony. And again, let me congratulate each and every one of the awardees. And you'll look forward to hearing more about them in the next few seconds.
Nina, thank you so much. So let's begin the presentation. To present our first award for local leadership in the arts in the small city category, I'm going to call upon Carmel Mayor Jim Brainerd, our last year's honoree. Jim.
If one were to look up the word leader in the dictionary, there'd be a picture of our award winner. Since her first days as mayor, Elizabeth Couts has insisted that the arts play a major role in Burnsville's heart of the city mixed-use redevelopment project to reinfuse energy into the downtown area. She understands how arts can drive economic development and redevelopment. Her most visible arts accomplishment is the city's new $20 million Performing Arts Center, which was dedicated in January of 2009. And this facility was constructed without any new taxes, using TIF or tax incremental financing and landfill fees. The new Arts Center hosts a wide variety of community arts groups, performing arts educational groups, national and professional touring acts, dance competitions, and recitals, and all manner of musical productions. In other words, it's the city's living room. It's where her community comes together to celebrate their culture. Mayor Couts believes art and design are and should be an important part of everyday life. Under her leadership, an art gallery was added to the new Performing Arts Center, which now hosts about 10 shows annually. And further, she has been a prime supporter of the annual City Art and All That Jazz Festival that attracts more than 10,000 music fans to an outdoor concert setting. And then as president of our organization, she exhibited remarkable national and international leadership for the arts as well. She understands that when all the debates at City Council are over and when history is written, local history is written, and people look back, they're not going to remember a lot of the things that we deal with day to day. But what they will remember are the venues that have been built and the cultural life that has been gained as a result of this leadership. So as a recipient of last year's award in the Small Cities category, it is my great honor to present to my colleague and my friend, Burnsville Mayor Elizabeth Couts, the 2012 Americans for the Arts and the United States Conference of Mayors National Award for Local Arts Leadership for cities with a population under 100,000 people.
Thank you, Jim, for that introduction, and thank you, American for the Arts. Thank you, U.S. Conference of Mayors. And yes, the arts is important to all of us. Not only is it an economic driver, but one of the things that the art does, it touches our souls. And it helps us to dive deep within ourselves and to rise up and to see the world differently, to see the world in a way that it connects all of us in all areas of life. Mitch, at the beginning, said that when you're asked whether you build a police station or an arts center, you say both. And that is the truth. You do both. The reason being is that one brings the community together. The other helps keep the community safe. When we built the Performing Arts Center, it was when our country was going into a deep recession. But you know how these things happen. It's a long process for all of us in the public sector. It's a protracted process. You have to do feasibility studies, have town hall meetings, and you have to have open meetings and at the city council. And it was a political year. I was running for re-election, and it was a political challenge for me. But you have to have the courage to move forward. Today in the audience is Charlie Johnson. Charlie Johnson with C.H. Johnson Consulting did the feasibility study for the Performing Arts Center. Now, for all of us, and from the beginning, I said that it would not make money. What it would do, it would drive business. It's a business driver, it's an economic driver. And let me tell you, today, in the heart of the city, it drives business. Yes, at the beginning, in the very first year, in 2009, when it opened, it wasn't doing well, like all of us would know. Anyone who's in the business sector, like I have been, you know that your banker will tell you you have to have a good cash flow analysis for the first 7 years, and hopefully that you start breaking even around 5 years. Well, we didn't do close to what we wanted to do in the first year, but we opened in February of 2009. But the second year, it's doing better, and the third year, it's doing even better. And how can you say no when you build a performing arts center, since you've been a city that has been host to garbage since the 50s, and now you have something for the citizens to enjoy and to say, yes, that belongs to us. Today, the mood is different, and people see the value. It drives business. But not only did we do the Performing Arts Center, I said that the arts in all of its forms is important. And I'm a community that came out of farms, and I didn't want our children and grandchildren to not remember our legacy. So I went to one of our business partners, our corporate partners, and I said, we need to make sure that we have public art, so our children and grandchildren remember where we came from. So he put $500,000 and commissioned a sculpture, our first piece of public art, and designed the park to present it. And now that is there. Needed other pieces of public art. So I go out and ask another business partner, and they had a foundation, and so we have another piece of art. So all of these things create beautiful amenities within the community, and it makes people smile. And so with all of that, I thank you, American for the Arts, and I thank you, Mitch Landrieu, for teaching me culture economy and all of the downstream products and services and businesses that come out of that, because we pushed that in Burnsville when I went down and learned that from Mitch. And let me tell you, I now count all of those businesses and make sure everybody knows what it does. And you can do the same. Thank you, American for the Arts. Thank you, U.S. Conference of Mayors. I will treasure this. I will take it back to Burnsville, and I share it with everyone who has helped me to make this a reality for our city. Thank you.
Elizabeth, thank you so much. I was thinking, if you can imagine the world without color or texture, you can imagine the world without art. Not a pretty picture. Not a place where I would want to live. But if you could imagine the world where every couple of weeks we get to see the Kennedy Center Awards and the joy and the life that each one of those individuals brings us and what you think it took to support them getting where they are, you start to get an idea of how important the work is that all of you do. So I thank you for that. This next award, I'm pleased to be able to present. It's in the large city category, and I'm honored to be able to talk about a gentleman that has become a good friend and has really become a soldier in this idea. He came to New Orleans last year and sat with Tom at the table and really understands this. Mayor Frank Ortis. Frank made it his mission to build arts and cultural resources into the city of Pembroke Pines, understanding that art really was a key to its vitality. In 2005, after 12 years of producing excellent musical theater, financial disaster struck the Pembroke Pines Theater Performing Arts in the form of Hurricane Wilma. We're kind of familiar in New Orleans about hurricanes, Frank. We don't like them. Having just expanded by opening a black box theater, the Pembroke Pines Theater had invested tens of thousands of dollars in its opening production only to sell a few tickets because of the hurricane. It appeared that the theater was about to close its doors, but newly elected Mayor Frank Ortis came to the rescue by helping to solidify the support of the City Commission and recruit new corporate donors. With this infusion of new energy and public-private dollars, the Pembroke Pines Theater was able to regroup, and 7 years later, happy to report, it is alive and well and thriving. In addition to his support for the theater, Mayor Ortis has been instrumental in the establishment of other arts resources in Pembroke Parks. For example, each year the city underwrites 9 free outdoor jazz performances that feature local jazz musicians, and it also hosts the Pembroke Pines Arts Festival, now in its 15th year. This annual outdoor art celebration features the work of almost 100 artists and attracts more than 15,000 visitors in 2 days. The work that he has done has, by all estimations, been exemplary, and so it is my honor to present the Pembroke Pines Mayor Frank Ortis the 2012 American for the Arts and the United States Conference of Mayors National Award for Local Arts Leadership for cities with a population of $100,000 or more. Frank, please come up and receive your well-rewarded.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, U.S. Conference of Mayors. Do I look bald on that screen? Mayor, we could be bookends. Seriously, with all due respect to the great mayor of Beverly Hills, this is bigger than the Golden Globes. This is huge for Mayor of Pembroke Pines. When Tom called me, I was in shock. I had to give it to my executive assistant. I says, Marlene, take this information. I'm excited. And I can't say any greater words or articulate any more than the great mayor of Burnsville. She's a great leader and inspiring. And I did go to that meeting in New Orleans, went with my beautiful wife, and I learned so much. We do have an arts festival, but we don't have millions attend like the great city of New Orleans. But what I did learn is that we had one theme. New Orleans Jazz Fest has several themes going on at one time. And it was so great. And it runs like a clock. You have to go to the Jazz Fest in New Orleans. It runs so great. So I went back to our Art and Culture Committee. And you know, Art and Culture Committees, they all have great ideas, they are. And I told them, I said, we're not going to have one theme anymore. We're going to have several. And we started that, and it's working out great. And as the great mayor said about our theater performing arts, all volunteers. The city partnered with the community college, one of the community colleges in the city, in which I was the chair of the trustees for 5 years, partnered with them for a theater, so they're using that now as well. And then we passed a bond issue when I became mayor, a $100 million bond issue. And we did it for everything in the city, roads and arts and all of that. And now we're about to launch a $30 million civics center. And we're going to do that because it's going to have our graduations of our high schools in it, and it's a transferable site that will take seats out and it can use it for different things. So I'm excited about that. And we just did the RFP. It came back a little higher than I would like, so we're going back out again, but it's going to be a beautiful venture. And I want to say, Mayor, I left a lot of money in New Orleans. My wife and I helped your economy. But I'll tell you, it is an economic driver. And you know what? When the residents emailed me and says, how could you think about building a civic center in this time, in these times? And I said, now is the time, because the construction companies are hungry. And we need to create jobs. And just as you said, Mayor, it is an economic driver. We're going to do it. We hope you will do it as well. And it's such a great honor to be here among these great mayors and great leaders of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Thank you so much for this great award. Thank you.
Frank, you're the greatest. Thank you. Just a couple of editorial comments here. When folks ask you about, is it now the time to build the Civic Center, let me be clear with you about the thing that brought New Orleans back. When we were on our knees, when there was nothing there, when everybody thought that we had lost a great American city, it was the arts, it was culture, it was music, and it was the communion of people that brought back the city of New Orleans. One of the first things we did was invest in rebuilding the Superdome, because that was the cultural icon that brought everybody in the community back together. Luther Vandross wrote a song once that said, "A house is not a home." And what he was trying to communicate to people is it's not just the physical structure, it's the soul. Art, music, culture, history, architecture, all of that stuff is the soul that infuses what it is that we do. It is the essential component of design. Mayor Riley, you know this better than anybody else. Steve Jobs said it, right? That design is not just something about the exterior. Design is the essential component. That's what art is. And it is an essential component to everything that we do in our communities. And we have to be smart enough to monetize it, to turn it into economic development, and to use it. And Frank understands that better than anybody else. Now, to present this next award, I'm going to call back to the podium Nina to give award to one of my dear friends and one of the great leaders in America. Nina, please.
I got to know Mayor Ortiz at that famous New Orleans meeting, too. He makes quite a statement. But I also got to really get to know Mayor Couts, and just a little editorial here, too, in our cultural mission trip to Turkey. And when she talked about public art and bringing it to her city, not only did she do it there, but she challenged the mayor of Istanbul to do the same. And we all know that it's a very beautiful, historic city, but she had also seen some more modern cities in Turkey bringing more of the modern aspects of life through public art to their cities. And she challenged the mayor of Istanbul to do the same, so I thank you for that. Now I'd like to talk about another great leader that we have gotten to know over the years at Americans for the Arts, primarily through Jay Dick, who's our Director of State Arts Policy, and that is Governor Quinn. Throughout his public service career, first as Lieutenant Governor and now as the Governor of Illinois, he has been a strong and vocal supporter of the arts and arts education. He understands that the arts enhance every aspect of life. They sharpen the state's competitive edge, and they attract talent, tourists, and investment to the land of Lincoln. Governor Quinn has consistently maintained that cuts to the arts would be short-sighted and has preserved funding for arts programs. The governor understands that the arts create jobs. They stimulate the economy and return more to the state than is spent. While implementing fiscal discipline and making very tough choices and cuts to the state budget, Governor Quinn was able to maintain and remain committed to ensuring that residents from all walks of life and from all corners of the state have a meaningful opportunity to ensure that they can experience and participate in the arts. In last year's fiscal 2011 budget, Governor Quinn used his discretionary powers to add $1 million in funding to the Illinois Arts Council budget, and he's been able to successfully maintain that level in FY 12. And to put this into context, states across, we all know that states and states that you live in have experienced very serious economic crunches, and many state arts budgets have absolutely been cut. This is one of the stellar examples this past year where there was actually not only maintenance but a small increase, and that was quite a success. With us today is Raw Joy, who actually nominated the governor. He heads up the Arts Alliance in Illinois, and he worked closely with the governor on all aspects of this in trying to get the state legislature to approve it. Governor Quinn's leadership contribute to the passage also of the Live Theater Production Tax Credit Act for Illinois. Through the use of the credit, the state of Illinois has created a tool that allows the city and state to further develop Illinois as a leader in theatrical tourism. Further, he has invested state resources in developing a new soundstage called the CineSpace Chicago Film Studios, which has made Illinois an even more attractive film destination. Governor Quinn has also included arts-related projects in the Illinois Jobs Now bill for capital programs, including a new performing arts center at Western Illinois University that will create 400 new jobs. Governor Quinn regularly attends cultural events across the state and uses his bully pulpit of his office to celebrate artists and raise awareness about the essential role the arts play in the social, economic, and educational growth and vitality of Illinois. Please now help me congratulate and welcome Governor Quinn in accepting the 2012 Americans for the Arts and United States Conference of Mayors National Award for State Arts Leadership.
Thank you. Very nice. Thank you. Appreciate it. Everybody. Thank you.
Want me to take this down for you?
Yeah. There we go. Well, I'm really glad to be here, and I want to congratulate all the awardees. And I know Mitch Landrieu for a long time. I used to be lieutenant governor, and he's a force of nature. And I've had a chance to visit New Orleans and Louisiana, and what Mitch talks about with respect to the cultural economy, I think we all need to take to heart that art means jobs. It's good for the soul, as Elizabeth said, but it's also good for people who need a job. And our state, I think we've shown over and over again that investing in the arts, in all of its manifestations, produces economic growth. And it brings to our state of Illinois and city of Chicago creative people. And you can't go wrong with creative people in the 21st century. And I do want to acknowledge some of our mayors here today. I hope I saw a few on the way in. We have our mayor from Danville, Scott Eisenhower, and from Freeport, George Galtrup, and Galesburg, Sal Garza, United States Marine, Semper Fi. From Urbana, Laurel Pressing. Pecatonica, Illinois. As Pecatonica goes, so goes the nation. That's Sean Connors. And I don't know whether Mayor of Oak Park is here, or Village President David Pope, but Dave has an arts district that I used to live very close to in Oak Park, Illinois, a whole couple of streets. We've learned a lot from other places in the United States. Paducah, Kentucky has one of the premier arts districts, a street, sometimes a nondescript street when it begins, but when artists show up, they're like a herd of ants. They make things happen, and then people come. They come to eat, they come to see theater, as was mentioned. We have a live theater tax credit that I just signed in Illinois. We're the home of Steppenwolf Theater and many other theater companies. Holland was just there with her great production of Ann, the story of Ann Richards, governor of Texas. We want to encourage more more live theater, because when people come to the live theater, they also eat at restaurants and patronize local stores. That's the whole idea of an economy. You have to have things recycle, and people get to know each other and go from there. In our state, we have something called the Black Ensemble Theater. Started in 1976 by an inspired woman who's still with the program, and she's taught just tens of thousands of students about theater, and art, and music, and life. And our state, when we passed the Capitol bill a couple years ago, we want to invest in the arts because they are important for our economy. We invested in the Black Ensemble Theater. Same way with the Old Town School of Folk Music, a completely different genre, but it was something that also brings people together. They learn together. They work together. And so I think it's so important that Americans for the Arts is such a strong force in our country. I got to meet Jay Dick when I was lieutenant governor, and we want him to make a full recovery here. I asked him whether a Tea Party guy tripped him up here with his crutches, but it's something else. But it takes a lot more than the Tea Party to stop Jay Dick, I'll tell you that. He understands, and it's so important that we all understand that so many jobs and businesses come from the arts. In our state, I think it's over 13,000 businesses, 128,000 employees, and you ain't seen nothing yet. We have Kelsey Grammer coming back for his second year as boss. It's done in Chicago. We have this new sound stage and studio that it's state-of-the-art. We want to make sure that we grab every possible opportunity that we can to show the arts to people, and also to give everyone a fighting chance at a job. With this whole studio we did on the west side of Chicago, as Mitch said at the beginning of our gathering here, so many people are behind the scenes. They may work at a restaurant, they may be a caterer, they may own a rug company, whatever the case might be. But it's created so many inner city jobs in our state. I think it's quite inspiring. And as mentioned, I do go to plays and theater. Who doesn't? Everybody should. But just last Sunday, I went to Too Hot to Handle. That's the name of it. And Handle is spelled Handel. Okay, it was the Messiah, Handel's Messiah, but it was a jazz gospel version. And I'm sure Mr. Handel, if you ever saw it, would probably need oxygen after looking at it. But it was the place was packed. It was the Auditorium Theater, built in 1889, an architectural masterpiece that we maintained, we didn't knock down. But the place was packed, and it was really a special show involving a lot of people. A salute to Dr. King. And I really thought that summed up why arts are so important in Illinois, in America. If we band together and work together, not only can we make the will of the people the law of the land, but we can make sure arts are always number one. Thank you very much.
One of the greats. Pat said a couple of things. Pat, I was in Chicago a couple of months ago. I went to Steppenwolf Theater. John Malkovich started there with a bunch of other folks. It's there. It's doing great. Illinois has a great assemblage of culture and music, and Governor understands the business side. Long time ago, we talked about grants from the National Endowment of Arts. We never used to talk about tax credits for things. That's the business side. We used to talk in the Appropriations Committee about tax credits to drill for oil and gas, tax credits to do this, tax credits to do that, because on the private side of the world, that's the incentive for business to do things. We stopped worrying about grants in Louisiana and start incenting the creation of jobs. And that's when you start understanding if culture means business, treat it like every other business. It gets you in the education business, too, because if you don't teach it, you can't learn it, right? And you also think about what it looks like after that. Not everybody that takes art and music grows up to be a professional actor, even though they may have dreamed to be. They may grow up to be the mayor of a city. You never know. Right? My mother told me when you point your finger, get three pointing back at you. So I didn't, a lot of doctors and lawyers, architects, engineers are pretty good artists themselves. And they're the ones that actually fill in for the bands, that create the live music in the restaurants that you have. And so if you can imagine church without music, try that for a minute, right? the world without color or texture, or church without music. What do we have? And so we understand that. Now, our next award is for a legendary artist. And I get the honor of presenting this award. Besides being chair of the Tapes Committee, I think the reason that I was picked is that I really am a frustrated thespian. That was my dream. I was a theater major. I was actually a professional actor when I was 16. I was a member of Actors Equity Union. My father had the misfortune of attending a audition with me. We were on a family trip, and I wanted to try out for a national road production of Evita. And so I made him get in the car with me and drive 3 hours in the snow. And I walked into the theater, and the director was not a very nice man, as most of them are not. And he very gruffly said, well, sing. And for those of you that don't know this, I know you politicians run for office and you get beat sometimes. The pain of getting beat is nothing compared to the pain of a director saying, okay, sing. You sing for about 4 seconds. You get 8 bars. It lasts like that. His handle's counting. And then he says, thank you so much. You're dismissed. And my father, who was a really rugged politician who had been involved in a lot of stuff, said, what the hell was that? That's it? We drove 3 hours? And that's it? He said, son, let me explain to you. You need another career to fall back on. Why don't you go to law school? And that's how I got here. Now, that's a true story. That's not a joke. It's painful, isn't it? The New Yorker has called Holland Taylor the first vaudeville Gentile we ever saw. She has worked extensively in film and television, appearing in hits such as Romancing the Stone, awesome movie, The Truman Capote Show, Spy Kids 2 and 3, and Legally Blonde. Ms. Taylor is a 7-time Emmy nominee, winning Best Supporting Actress in a Drama in 1999 for her role as Judge Kittleson on The Practice. She currently is appearing in the hit show 2.5 Men with John Cryer and Ashton Kutcher. How's that young man doing? He's got long hair. It is. All right, don't tell. That's. In 2006, Ms. Taylor began to work researching, writing, and producing a one-woman show that was to become Anne, a portrait of the legendary governor of Texas, Ann Richards, who so many people in this room know personally. Talk about a force of nature, just an unbelievable character on the great American political scene. Just a great subject matter. Ann just completed successful runs in Texas, Chicago, and most recently at the John F. Kennedy Center for Performing Arts. Tom Cochran just told me that he saw it last week and that it was really true to Ann Richards, an authentic portrayal. Before we bring you up, we would like to just show you a short video to give you a taste.
Governor Ann Richards!
Well, I thank you for inviting me to speak at your graduation. I am glad to be here. Now, I have to tell you all, Texas politics is a contact sport. No autopsy, no foul. The reality is, kids, it's best you know. I come from Georgia prison stock. If I got turned out over my concealed weapons veto, I say so be it and sayonara. More guns in people's pockets meant more people dead, and there was just no compromise to be had. Now, I did tell them, I told them that I could consider a law that allowed guys to carry guns hanging from a chain around their neck. Because that way we could say, look out, he's got a gun. One journalist said, Ann Richards has walked through fire. And the fire lost.
Okay, Governor, I have Sally for you from scheduling. Now, she's new, Ann, so don't make her...
This is Ann Richards. I'm looking at my account. Now, hold on a second. Is this a little girl with the green eyes and the bangs? I want to suggest to you that you rethink the bangs. Look at that, Talbot. The Pope has an opinion on this case, and you don't. Can you imagine if I were your mother-in-law? I could fix you.
I think the greatest compliment that you can give to an actress is that you embodied the soul of Ann Richards. For those of us that knew her, that is like pitch on perfect. So God bless you for that. So it's my honor to present the 2012 Legendary Artist Award to Ms. Holland Taylor. Holland, please come on up.
Thanks. I'm going to do what every actor does, which is to say, I wish y'all hadn't seen that, because that was my second performance of this ever, almost 2 years ago. The night before, and a very different play, because it's been developed and rewritten. We've done 6 cities, and plays get developed that way. You work hard on them and on your accent and on everything else that needs to be worked on. And that performance was a matinee performance after I had given the first performance of it ever for 1,000 people at the Galveston Opera House, an opera house saved by a mayor after the great storm called Ike. And that performance was the first paid performance with 1,000 people, and it was the first time I ever got through it without stopping. That's what's called a high wire act. So that was the matinee the next day where I was like, where am I and who am I? What has happened to me? The play has had many, many revisions and improvements since, and I hope that some of you will be able to come and see it in New York if you didn't see it here. It has changed my life to do this play. So we're talking about art. So I can talk about art from my point of view and what it means to me, what culture means to me in the city. I have a variety of images that strike me about this. First of all, when I originally was written a letter that I was being given this award, I was incredibly moved and excited. And in the letter, it was called Citizen Artist. And for some reason, that is perhaps because I just had a birthday and I'm now considerably older. It's been called Legendary Artist now. It was, in fact, called Citizen Artist in the letter. So, if I may, I'm going to be your Citizen Artist Award. I was never much of a citizen. Like a lot of actors, I sort of felt out of it as a younger person. I was a senior in college when Jack Kennedy, who was, of course, my idol, whom I was too young to vote for, was assassinated. And shortly thereafter, Malcolm X, whom I admired very much, was just keenly interested in, was assassinated. Then, of course, Martin Luther King was assassinated, and we had that extraordinary experience of Robert Kennedy announcing this to a group that practically slid to the floor in grief. And then shortly after that, Robert Kennedy was assassinated. And just because when that was in my personal history as a young person, I dropped out. I was an actor or wanted to be, and that's all I paid attention to. I went to Europe a lot. I did not read the paper. I did not vote. I didn't decide that. I just did that. I know a lot of you will understand. As I got older and sort of woke up, I came back into being interested in the political world, but not with any kind of detail. I don't really understand how it all works. I'm a Democrat by inclination and general persuasion, but I don't understand a lot about government. And, of course, researching Ann Richards for, it doesn't stop, of course, the research, but researching her for certainly 3+ years, I learned such multitudes and have such enormous respect for all of you and what you do. And the intricacies I begin to understand. I want to say some of my friends are here, amongst them Lynn Cutler, whom you all know. Lynn Cutler was a county commissioner right during that period in the 70s when Ann Richards was starting her career as a county commissioner. And I understood, because of my research, and it's in the play, that is an executive role. There's discretionary money. You can decide what to do about things. When you get a bridge built, is it going to be designed or is it going to be thrown up? Just any which of a way. And then mayors, I understand that is an executive role. You have discretionary money. You decide things. You are creative about your community, and you create the world that you think will work, depending on your personal persuasion. And everyone here seems to grasp that how important the arts are economically as well as soulfully. And I would say from my naive understanding of these things, but as a 69-year-old person, I absolutely know with a certainty that the only time any trickle-down theory works is with art. Art does trickle down and lifts the furthest person it touches. And I can tell you that as a melancholy person, which I sort of am by temperament, in my earlier years when I found life too challenging, there are only, and sometimes even still, this is true, there are only two places that I walk into and feel a kind of relief fall over me and happiness lift, and whatever my problems are go away. And that is any place of worship, mosque, temple, church, it doesn't matter, or any museum or art gallery. It's like whatever I do in here, whatever time I spend here is time well spent. And also I used to watch, I think most cities have this, an arts channel where they just play different kinds of events. You know, you'll see a piece of ballet and there'll be, a music segue, and then it would go into something from a play, and then there'll be some other segue and some performance artists. It's just sort of a loop of art that is on television just to watch, like the Weather Channel or any other thing. And I would just tune into that and be soothed by that. So I owe art any kind of stability that I have. My other two friends who are here are David Miller, who, if any of you saw the play, David Miller was an aide of Ann Richards, was in her administration, and he is the one who depicted in this play anyway, he is the one that Ann Richards made cry, if any of you saw it. And Max Woodward from the Kennedy Center is here. Max Woodward has been at the Kennedy Center about 40 years, and he is currently sort of the boss of the applesauce. He picks everything that plays there. He picked this play on the basis of two things. He did not see it. He read it. And he knew that Bob Boyett, the legendary New York producer that handles Anne, he knew his judgment and his taste. And so 1 year ago, taking an Ann Richards-sized risk, he bought Anne for the Kennedy Center. And I think, Max, it's fair to say it did very well, didn't it? Extremely well. I thank you. As a citizen artist, I'm fairly newly a citizen and very, very rarely count myself an artist. But something happened to me with this Ann Richards project. First of all, it wasn't an idea. It wasn't like, oh, I want to do a one-person show. Trust me, I didn't. It was that I was compelled after her death. I couldn't shake the mournful feelings I had, though I didn't know her. And I realized that I missed her. I missed her as a presence in my life who I could count on, who I saw a lot. She was a really big presence in New York and on television shows in New York. And whatever she said, she must have just somehow been essentially a very comforting figure, a reassuring figure. I had some unspoken image that she was like this prairie mother in a long blue jean skirt who would come out of the house with a rolling pin and just take out any bully or anybody in the neighborhood who was a pain in the ass. And she just seemed someone that you would just want to have in your life. So when she died, I was moved do something about it. As I'm an actor, that's all I could do about it. I researched, I figured, well, nobody else can write this play. They would have to go do all this research. So it just unfolded, and it has been kind of a miracle of creativity that has fallen on me like a mantle. Trust me, it was a really extraordinary experience. The end of this is that when I was on Rosie not long ago, when I was in that fabulous city, Governor, when you have a great state and a great state for theater. I think of Chicago more as a theater town than New York, because New York theater is so tourist-driven, and of course tourists do come to Chicago theater. Chicagoans come to Chicago theater. It is a hell of a Chicago. That site is a real theater town. And so we played there just with the greatest pleasure. And I was going to say something about that, and it's completely eluded. You see why I can't be trusted to know what the hell I'm talking about at any given time. But Rosie, thank you. Very good. Very, very good. Re-elect this man. So when I was on Rosie, she said, and she's a great dame, and she said, amongst other questions, she said, well, did you write this? Did you write this for all those thousands upon thousands of people who miss Anne and in Texas and long for her, and all those people who knew her? And I said, no, I wrote it for America. And as I said it, I thought, well, that's true. And this play is not political or partisan at all. It is about public service, but that's as a byproduct. It's about a person of great substance, of great heart, of great humor, who solved problems with humor. And so I just know that many of you are cut from that bolt. Not everybody can be as funny or as beautiful or as fascinating as Anne, but a lot of people can have that kind of heart and that kind of care that wants to improve things, that sees the person who's standing in the shadow and says, what is your name? That wants everyone to come to the party, who has such an innate sense of fairness, which she developed at a very, very young age. And, a citizen artist is someone who, if you think of a citizen soldier, like the Private Ryan stories about a citizen soldier, somebody who's a regular person just in the world, who steps up to fight a great fight. And many of you do that. And as a citizen artist, I've taken on whatever gear it takes to fight the fight, to get a message across about someone like Ann Richards, who is truly, people come to this play, I tell you, they leave inspired. One of our ushers said, we had ushers come backstage every night if they wanted to, who had been watching the play a lot and seen a lot of it. A young usher who, well, not so young, middle-aged usher, who I think was of Asian descent, said, I think I'd like to run for office. And right away I said exactly what I believe Ann Richards would have said, because it's just some memory. I said, look into running for your city, your school board. Get on your school board, get into the scene, find out what's going on. The ushers are an interesting story. Have I gone way over time already? Am I all right for a second more? Somebody answer. Okay, thank you. So, Max started out as an usher 40 years ago at the Kennedy Center. He now runs the whole shebang. There are 500 ushers there. There's 6 or so theaters, as you know. The Eisenhower, called Ike, has its own ushers, and they rotate by day. There's Thursday night ushers, etc. So early on, my director, who stood in the back of the house, would say he'd hear these ushers go, right on. They give little encouragement. He'd hear them making their quiet little supports of things that Anne said, and often throughout the play, because she does say some stuff. And this is a written play. This is a few very actual comments of hers, but it is written, but I really do know her pretty well. So I thought, well, I'd like to meet them. So I posted a notice where they gather saying, if anyone wants to come back after the show into the green room, please do. It's a large, commodious green room with lots of couches. Well, one came, then two, then three, then 5, then 8, then 11. And every night we had ushers after the show in their red coats. And it was like Anne's Army. There were lots of civilians that would come backstage, but there was always the red coats. And we had a wonderful time together. And there would be Ambassador Amy Bondurant seated next to an usher, seated next to Senator Mary Landrieu, who I discover is his sister, which is very exciting. She spoke very, very beautifully. And another usher sitting next to her. And I thought, this is just lovely. We had kind of like fireside chats every night. Saturday night, as we were closing out of the Kennedy Center the next day, it happened to be my birthday. And I come up to the green room afterwards, and a lot of my guests are there and people who want to say hello. And they opened the doors to the green room, and the ushers had thrown me a birthday party. And there were about 40 or 45 of them there. And they had provided the refreshments themselves. And it had been their initiative to do this. And they all talked about how the play and working at the Kennedy Center and all of their exposure to art lifted their lives impossibly high. This is what we can do in our cities and our states and our municipalities and in our lives, is that knowing that art is the ultimate comfort, art is the ultimate cheer, that art is the ultimate nourishment, and we must provide it. And when I think of where our education is in this country, comparatively speaking to others, I think we're something like 45th. I asked in Anne's final press conference, she talked about some things that she did and some things that she couldn't get done. She looked off into the middle distance and she said, I couldn't get a raise for teachers' pay. I just couldn't get it done. And I was very struck by that, and I asked an aide of hers, why couldn't she get it done? Because what do I know? I don't know anything about how things work. And the aide, who was actually her chief of staff, said, well, there isn't any money in it. There isn't any money in it. And I got it. The lobbyists, the legislatures, the power that makes laws get made, the forces that make things happen. Well, I'll tell you what there is money in. There is money in the kids those teachers teach. They are the workforce of our future. They are what we are going to be all too soon. And there are even teachers in Pennsylvania now working for no pay because they want to do something for their kids. So it's art and it's education, and without them, we're done. We're finished. So I know you all are doing great work, a work uphill, a work for which there is not a lot of money behind it. But I beg you, carry on this work. Yes, do the public facility, and yes, also do the theater or the symphony. I beg you. You are up to great work, and it's an honor to meet every one of you, and a great honor to be honored by you. Thanks a lot.
Well, we couldn't have said it much better than that. I have been told by the creative artists that they're now going to take that plaque and they're going to put one on the other side that says citizen as well. So now you can be legendary citizen and have both of them to look at. Thank you all so much to the honorees. Again, congratulations to everybody that came today. Thank you for your support. We are adjourned. God bless.